Hi you all, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to keep it classic and simple with a homemade turkey chili and cornbread from scratch. Alright, so with this recipe, we start with having our beans soak for a few hours before being prepared with our ground turkey, our spices, and our stuff that we'll use for our cornbread. I'll have the ingredients listed below. In a bowl, I get my spices together, which is my salt and pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, chili powder, ground cumin, and fresh oregano. And then we'll set that aside. Oh yeah, also, and some smoked paprika. We set that aside, and that's what we'll use to season our meat and our pot of chili. So it looks like a lot of spices, but it will literally season the entire large pot, which is needed for that flavor. We get our meat finely chopped however way you'd like it. I like a little bit of chunky meat in my chili, and we're basically browning our ground turkey here. This could be substituted for ground chicken or ground beef, your flavor of choice with your meat. And then we add in our spices here, and we mix it well, getting all those spices incorporated with the cooking. And we continue to cook that until that meat becomes fully cooked. And then we're going to get our beans added in here. And I add these beans in here with the water that they were soaking in. It's going to just bring in that bean flavor that we are adding to our chili beans. Give that a good mix here. And then I am going to get more water added later, but for now we're getting that mixed in, getting those beans up to temperature with the ground meat that we're using. And for some additional flavors with this chili, I am going to grab a chicken bouillon and add that in here as well. That's a good heaping tablespoon. And I add in water, the desired amount of water to the teaspoon or tablespoon, I should say, of the recommendation from the recipe for the bouillon. So now we give that a good stir, get all those flavors incorporated, and as you can see, it's already starting to look like our base of our chili. That color is there and the flavor is there. And now we're adding a few more items here, which is a small can of green chilies and some diced tomato. The chilies are optional depending on if you like your chili a little bit spicy. I like a little bit of heat on it, so I do add in those green chilies here. All right, time for the cornbread. For this cornbread, this is one of the recipes that I cannot take credit for. It is a recipe from the Neelys. It was a cooking show with the Neelys, a husband and wife, and I used to love this cooking show on Food Network. But anyway, this is their recipe for the cornbread, which I'll post a link to in my description. But basically, when you find a good recipe, you don't try to recreate it, you just keep it the same. And so that's this recipe for me. And every time I make a homemade from scratch recipe for cornbread, it's theirs. So you basically start with your base of honey and hot butter. You mix that, and then you incorporate your additional other wet ingredients, which is your milk and your eggs. I halved their ingredient list for this recipe, because I didn't want to make too much. If you'll see, I made little small mini cornbreads. The recipe calls for double of what I used for this recipe, but I got the milk, the eggs, the honey, and the butter mixed together. And then you slowly pour in the butter, the milk and the eggs into the butter. The butter is hot, so you don't want it to curdle, so you need to be vigorously whisking at all times here. And now in a separate bowl, we get to our dry ingredients. This is going to be our cornmeal and our flour, our baking soda, and sugar. And with using a whisk, I also forgot the salt here, a pinch of salt. And with the dry ingredients, to make sure there's no lumps, I always whisk it together. If you can see whisking it here, it breaks up any lumps or any clumps that you may have, and it evenly distributes the dry ingredients together. I don't like to pour in wet ingredients on non-mixed dry ingredients because I want to evenly have all the dry ingredients mixed together also. just like you do with your wet ingredients. So then I now get the wet batter and the dry batter mixed together and get that smoothly beaten till, again, there's no lumps. We don't like lumpy cornbreads. We like our smooth, even, and nice coated cornbread. I switched to a non-stick paddle to continue to make this cornbread process. It's easier to scrape around the bowl and incorporate together without so much sticking onto the whisk. Now I get my oven preheated to 400 degrees and I have these mini cute little cast irons. I only use these once in a while, and I thought this recipe was cute to just do some mini cornbreads instead of muffing tins or a regular pan of cornbread. Yeah, I opted for these. I found these oddly at a dollar store years ago where they used to sell misfilled cookies where you can make your own personal cookie in the cast iron. And literally they were like $1. And I'm like, these are real cast iron skillets. And so I didn't even buy them for the cookie mixture. I bought them and kept them for future use, as I knew that they would come in handy one day. A mini cast iron this small is super cute, entertaining, and again, for $1, unbeatable. So anyway, I evenly distribute the cornbread mixture into the skillet. You don't want to fill it all the way up because, of course, you are going to have your cornbread rise a bit. So I filled each one up to about halfway up and let them kind of sit for a moment to kind of spread evenly in the skillet. And yeah, they're going to go in the oven. I did a little bit less of the time than the recipe called for because these are mini, so they're going to cook a little bit faster since it's not such a big circumference of baking needed. Like if you were doing this in a large cast iron, it being one large cornbread, the baking time would be more. But these are very thin cornbread, so it's going to take less baking time. Now they're going in the oven, and voila, they're finished. And just pulled enough away from the edge. There's a closer look at these mini cornbreads. They're perfect, cute, perfect serving size, and that's it. So now I like my chili with some chili Fritos, cheese on top, some sour cream, and a little bit of green onion. Some people like theirs served with rice. This is my version of eating my chili. You can serve this in many different ways, whichever is your preference. But all in all, I hope you guys enjoyed this chili recipe. I hope you all make it. And comment, give your recommendation, your likes, your emotional outbursts below in the comments. And as always, I thank you for watching. And make sure you subscribe for more.